It's a blessing to welcome on one of the top players in 2021 and now one of the top commits in Washington's 2021 recruiting class, Jackson Grant. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Well, this has been a wild time, and you've been able to avoid this because you've been committed now for a little over a year now. You haven't
Yeah.
gone through this crazy COVID recruiting class year, but just take us through what it feels like as you get closer and closer to getting to Washington.
Yeah, it's just getting really exciting, and I'm really thankful and blessed that I got to kind of get my recruiting out of the way. I've seen some of my friends on my AAU team and stuff have to go through like recruiting during COVID, and it's hard because there's just nothing for them really to do, nowhere to play, and nowhere for coaches really to see them. So I'm just glad to get that out of the way. And then as it gets closer, I'm just working hard and hoping we have a high school season for one last kind of senior season with my guys, and then just looking forward to getting up there and experiencing that.
Now, when you commit about a little over a year ago, you obviously didn't know COVID was going to come into effect. You didn't know all this, but you just at that point knew that Washington's the school you want to play at. Why was that the factor, and why was Washington where you chose?
Well, I think Washington was the place I chose because it just like it felt right. Like that seems kind of cheesy and kind of like cliche to say that, but like I feel like everybody says that, but it really did. Like I went there on my visit and like I just loved all the coaching staff and it was close to home and I loved the idea of kind of being able to like come back to my high school and we're on breaks and like help coach there and be involved with the kids and the high school team there. And then just it seemed like a really good program for me. I felt like I would fit really well.
That's a cool aspect because you're the hometown hero guy. You're staying home. Family can come watch you play. You just kind of get embraced by the community. They've seen you grow up now.
Yep.
How special would that be?
I think that'll be really cool, especially like going forward as I play more and get more active on the UW team. And then as there's kids that come through the high school that have been watching me growing up and then to have me come back to practices and be able to be like a part of their lives and kind of like share my experiences, what I went through to get to where I am and how I can help them out is going to be super cool and fun.
Now you commit as early as you did, and we know if you didn't commit at that point, more offers would have come into play. You possibly could have won more visits prior to obviously being shut down. But what other schools were in the mix for you? What schools were you really heavily considering up until the commitment?
So I had offers from Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Pepperdine, San Diego, Santa Clara, Colorado, most of the Pac-12, Stanford, Wisconsin. I actually took my officials at Stanford and Wisconsin and UW. So those were probably the top three that I was really considering before picking UW.
Now, what separated UW from everyone else?
I'd say mostly the coaching staff. Just I loved Coach Hopp's energy. He's really aligned kind of similarly to how my coach coaches, and he's been my high school coach, been my coach since like second grade on. So he brings a lot of energy, and Coach Hopp brought a lot of energy, and he's coached a lot of great players, and I think he can get me to where I want to be.
Now, maybe Washington hasn't dominated overall wins in the past few years, but look at the players he's developed now. Two guys in this past NBA draft. Look at guys like Matisse Thybulle has been in there. Jalen, Markel Fultz, a lot of guys he's been able to develop and get to that next level. Seeing that factor, how much did that play into your decision?
I think that was a big part of it because seeing, even though they weren't last season, was kind of a disappointment as far as wins go. And I know they up there are really disappointed about how last season went with the talent they had, but just seeing how they can have a kind of mediocre season like that and still get two guys in the top 20, 25 picks is crazy to see that kind of player development and how that worked out. And that's really exciting for me because I know at least like playing AAU on the circuit for the first summer junior year, that really like my game grew exponentially there. So just seeing what I can do in a program where you're playing basketball every day and lifting and everything they do is devoted to getting you to be as good as you can be. I'm just excited to see my development.
Now, I read about you before that you said that your ultimate goal isn't necessarily to be one and done. You look more forward towards the future of being possibly 2, 3, 4 year development process. I mean, obviously, if one and done is something that's available to you, I'm sure you're looking into that and possibly take that. But what went into that mindset? Why do you kind of realize that this might be a 2, 3 year process for you?
Well, I think just seeing people that I've been playing against and seeing like the one and done level, I don't think I'm quite there yet as of right now. I'm not saying that I won't be by the end of 1 year at UW. I'll have to see how that goes. But I've just kind of, even like with my development as a person, I was never like developed younger. Like I wasn't a kid that was recruited from like sixth grade forward. That only came in like in the last couple of years of high school. So if that kind of train follows in college, then it'll be the last couple of years of college where I really have kind of finalized my development there and I'm ready to move on to the league.
I mentioned a lot of these NBA players that Coach Hawkins been able to develop, but a lot of them don't really relate to each other. Everyone's got different skill sets. It's not like a typical branding of each player. So what does he
Right.
expect from you? What does he want you to become over your time there?
I think he's really looking for kind of like, I think he really liked my versatility, what I can bring to the team in the zone and the man, how I'm like a big man, but I'm also really mobile. So I can bang down low and shoot outside, kind of stretch the floor and be that stretch big that can kind of play anywhere on the floor where he's needed.
That is a critical component to today's game. You might be listed as a center, but you can stretch it out, be the power forward. You can even maybe run some small forward depending on offenses. But how have you learned to incorporate this modern day game into your game?
Well, I think the biggest part that I've kind of incorporated into my game is shooting. My 3-point percentage, I actually set the record my sophomore year for 3-point percentage in a season at the school. And just that's kind of been one of the strong points of my game other than my inside game. And then kind of in the last year or so, I've developed kind of my attacking game because people are starting to close out harder knowing I can shoot now. So I've really developed like attacking in my passing game.
5 or so years ago, if you're your height, you're running down low, you're on the block nonstop, shooting balls out of the question.
Yep.
Was that something that you started at a younger age? Was your parents or coach kind of developing that into you, or when did you really start stretching the game out?
I think I really started stretching the game out kind of like freshman year once I got into high school. When I was younger, I was always the biggest kid. So I was always stuck down low because that's how the game was. But once I got into high school and there got to be bigger kids, they started to see like my shooting ability and how I could stretch the floor. So if a kid was slower than me, but a little bigger, then I could stretch the floor. If they were smaller, I could go back inside and bang inside. So I'd say probably freshman year was when that really developed, kind of like my stretching the floor game.
And you're in a class now, you're in Washington, but this is a class that has a lot of talent out there. Some guys have moved out to go play different states right now, but that core group that's kind of grown up together, kind of the face of this class, is one of the better Washington classes ever. What's like being part of
Yeah.
that?
It's super fun to just see like putting Washington basketball kind of back on the map, the Seattle kind of Olympia, Seattle area, just like with Paulo and Nolan and Shane and me, just all kind of going high major D1 and just seeing how kind of like everybody from my age group, like looking at this class and like this class could be a really good class and to be a part of that's just really cool.
And we look at the college aspect. You're the guy stays home. Some people might have thought it'd been a disappointment not getting a guy like Paulo out there, but right now you are the face of 2021. Are there any other guys you're targeting? Is there anyone else you want to come with you and join you in 2021?
Nothing, nobody I can really think of right now. I know UW got a couple transfers, and one of the transfers, Eric Stevenson, actually played at a high school that's probably 5 minutes from my house. So that was cool to have him kind of come back home. And then I was really hoping John Christophilus played on my team this summer, and I really liked him, but he obviously ended up going to Creighton. Then I think that'll be a good fit for him. So I'm excited to see his development there. But that was probably one of the guys that I was kind of hoping would go to UW.
Now, you being there for who knows how long, you're going to be a guy that can start recruiting guys, especially being a hometown presence kind of guy.
Yep.
Are there any guys maybe in 2022 or other classes that you'd like to bring with you and start recruiting to Washington?
I haven't really been looking into that too much. I've been kind of more focusing on my development and getting myself ready for UW, but I'm sure as I get up there and I get more kind of settled in, I'll start looking more into our class and even beyond like younger guys.
Without doubt, we will be playing the Pac-12, a conference that for a long time has kind of been slept on. Not a lot of people gave it the respect, but right now you look at the conference, they have three guys that could possibly be the three best freshmen in the country: Zaire Williams, Evan Mobley, Josh Christopher. A lot of talents out there now.
Yep.
How excited are you to be a part of this Pac-12?
I think it's awesome. I mean, the Pac-12 has always kind of been like, if you talk about like a home team, obviously is Washington, and the Pac-12 is kind of like our home conference. That's all up pretty much up and down the West Coast. And it's just super cool to see like West Coast basketball really kind of coming together and getting like a nice strong presence on the West Coast and having some high major, probably possible. A lot of them are going to be one and done players. It makes me super excited to play in the Pac-12 because it's going to turn into a really competitive league.
Who is the team that you're most excited to go play against when you get out there?
I'm really excited to play like Wazoo because that like Washington Wazoo rivalry of just like that kind of big rivalry game. I never really got to have that in high school because we were like the only 4A school around. So the closest school we played was like 40 minutes away. So I never got to have that big like home crowd, away crowd kind of feel of just like having a big rival that's like just like, yeah, pretty much a rivalry that I'm just looking forward to.
Another crazy thing is that with today, the camps you guys go to, the AAU teams, high school, you know so many more guys than maybe so many years ago. Social media has a big impact on that as well. Are there friends that you're super excited to go play against when you get out there and start playing college?
Yeah, well, one of the guys I'm really excited to go play against is probably his name's Will McClendon, and he's going to UCLA. He was actually on my visit with me at UW, so we got kind of close there. And I was trying to get him to come here, but he obviously went to UCLA, so that'll be a fun kind of battle over there. Somebody I know is in the same conference that we'll end up playing once or twice a year.
Now you have a year to get on campus. Who knows what you get to do? If it's a season, if it's just training for the next year, we'll see how God unfolds that. But for you personally right now, what do you want to improve on? What do you need to get involved in your game to get you ready to go out there for your freshman season?
Yep. What I'm really kind of improving on right now is just like my strength and quickness. So just continuing to improve my ball handling and my attacking from the outside. I'm starting to run the break a little bit on the high school team just to challenge myself that way, and then just lifting and putting on a little bit of weight so I can bang down in the post easier with those big college guys.
I read somewhere, I believe you added on 15 pounds now. Is that more than that? Where's your weight stand right now?
So I'm 6'10", 215 right now. So it's kind of been that steady, consistent kind of 15-pound weight that I've gained since quarantine, but the gyms have kind of shut down. So I have some home gym equipment that I've been using. And then I think I really put on a lot of weight because basketball slowed down. So without as much cardio, it was easier to just kind of pack on pounds. So yeah, I've gained about 15 pounds since quarantine started, and just, I don't know. I'm kind of waiting to see how much, what's like a good play weight for me, where like I'm strong and like obviously heavier, harder to push around, but I can still stay quick and athletic is the goal.
Do you feel comfortable at 215, or would you like to add a couple more pounds on? Like, where do you kind of think it might be that range for you?
As of right now, I feel really comfortable at 215. I've actually think it's helped me a lot, especially with like attacking the basket. I feel a lot stronger with the ball, and like I don't get bumped off my path as much. So I don't know. I could probably see myself adding 5 to 10 more pounds. I'd probably still be comfortable there, but I'm just excited to see where UW wants me and what they're going to do that way.
No, I never like asked this question to you guys are committed, but growing up as a family, as you personally, was there a dream school? Was there a school you rooted for growing up?
Yeah, I'd say UW was kind of like the dream school always, because that's where my mom went. So we aren't like a huge sports family, like not super into like watching sports, but like that was always the team. Like we'd go up to games, and if we were going to watch somebody on TV, we'd end up watching the Huskies. So that was kind of my dream school growing up. And then once they came into like the recruiting process, it was super exciting. As I got to know more about the school, I really kind of like fell in love with it more and like felt that kind of hometown feel with it.
Take me through that first time Coach Hopkins or whatever coach it was that first talked to you. What was just knowing that Washington's interested in you, and what kind of were your emotions?
It was super exciting. So we were actually just coming back from an AAU tournament where he'd watched me at, and he called me while we were at the airport, and that was when he gave me the offer. And I was just super excited to have that kind of hometown school. The airport's like 30 minutes from UW, so it was cool to just have that like hometown school and be right there and have that kind of like opportunity to play right in my backyard. And I just never really, before junior year, I never really had even, I mean, some colleges were on my radar, but they were smaller D1s or D2s. So I was really excited to have that like big D1 offer come in.
And we know a big thing about them is that they run a lot of the zone. And that's a place that you will be versatile in. You can run the middle man, can run a little bit on the both sides too. How excited will you get embracing that and kind of run the zone defense?
I'm really excited for the zone defense. So actually, my high school's been running the zone for the last couple of years, and it's been probably one of our stronger defenses. And I'm really getting to know kind of the way of like playing that middle spot and starting to play those wing spots. And just I'm really excited because I think I kind of have like a good background knowledge from high school of like already how that zone should work and how it's going to play out. I mean, obviously his zone will be a little different, but there's only so much you can change in a 2-3 zone. So I'm just excited to get up there and get into his 2-3 zone, because I think that's a really good defense. It works really well for my play style.
Personally, rankings don't matter too much, but it is pretty cool to see where you rank up and to kind of get that name behind you. And right now, 247 has the 17th highest commit ever in Washington history, which is a high feat. When we mention all those NBA players been a part of that program, what's it like to see a name a part of those guys?
I think that's super awesome to just see my name up there with all those NBA players like the Nate Robinsons and the Isaiah Thomas and Spencer Hawes and all those cool people. Just thinking about myself being ranked that high and just thinking that could be me. You know, I could be the next guy that they talk about when you have in 10 years, you have somebody else that you're interviewing that's going to UW, and then they'll have their name mentioned alongside mine. That's just a really cool kind of milestone.
Absolutely. Now let's get into this high school season. It's up in the air still, keeps getting pushed back. Many states have already canceled the high school seasons. And when you look at this, I know you're a guy that obviously loves basketball. I can imagine you want to play games. Has it been something that you kind of considered, though, knowing that there might not be games this year? Have you looked at joining one of the grind session teams or something where you could just get some games in this year?
I actually haven't considered joining the grind session teams, but the other day Coach Hopp called and offered kind of like if I could get my school stuff in order to go up there and maybe go up and like kind of early enroll during spring quarter or even winter quarter. But I don't think I don't think I'll be able to get early enough graduation to go up there winter quarter. But if there's no real high school season, or it's not pretty much, if there's no high school season, then I'll probably end up going there early in the spring, and I'll get to practice and live up there and just kind of get the feel for it, which will be super fun.
Now, if you can get the grades acclimated and get that done somehow in the next few weeks, the next couple months or whatever, is that something you would look into? That's something you'd like to do?
I think, yeah, I don't want to leave my high school team really senior year
Mm-hmm.
I mean, growing up with this coach and these kids, I kind of want to play a season. But for me, I don't know. It's going to be hard to really get motivated for a season if there really is no state championship.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to have to be a discussion. If I can get the grades, it'll be way more of a discussion to go up there. If I end up having to miss the high school season, it'll be a harder choice than if it's like, obviously spring quarter is going to be after the high school season. So once the high school season's over, and then I can get up, I'm going to try and get up there as soon as I can.
Now, last year you were able to go out there and you had one of the most successful seasons in school history. You guys put together a phenomenal season, 23-7 record. You put up average a double-double. Take us through last year and what it was like.
Last year was super fun. I mean, the year before we were really talented and we ended up falling short and not making it to the state tournament. And that was my junior year. So that was my third year on varsity.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we finally broke through and made it to the state and playing that first game in the dome was super exciting, kind of like the nerves and the butterflies. And that was the first time anybody on our team had played in the dome either. So that kind of experience was super fun. And one of the kids that had been on varsity all 3 years with me, and he was a senior last year. So it was a cool kind of like last kind of like kickoff with him to like end on like a high note and being fourth in the state and having a good finish for our last year together.
I mentioned you averaged 17 points, 11 rebounds last year as a junior. If there was a normal season this year, what do you think you're capable of averaging? Where do you think your numbers could have been if this was a normal season?
I would think probably my rebounds would be around the same, 11 to 12. I bet my scoring would be a little higher because we obviously lost Kai Johnson, who was our other kind of high scorer. I think he might have had 18 or 19 a game, so I'd probably have to pick that up. I bet I'd be around 22 to 25 points a game this year, and then probably 12 to 13 rebounds a game.
And you look at your entire state, you mentioned all the big time guys this 2021 class. If you could pick one guy to go up against, who has been your favorite matchup or who's someone you like to go up against in your state?
Yeah, my favorite matchup is probably Paulo. We play really similar positions, and he's probably one of the highest ranked guys to ever come out of Washington. I don't know how many Duke commits have ever come out of Washington, but or one and done players like he's probably going to be, but he's probably one of the best players in the class of 2021. So to have him kind of like an hour up the road that we can play each other at camps and stuff has been a super good experience for me.
And you go up against these guys. Obviously, when you're on the court, it's competition, you're going at them, but everyone that's a great player learns from different pieces of different guys they go up against. What are some things you maybe learned from him or you've kind of grown from him by playing against him?
From him has just been kind of like the way he kind of carries himself. Like he's always confident going into any situation. He really knows that like he's comfortable where he's at. You know, he knows he's one of the best players in 2021 and he plays like it. And that was kind of my thing, being not a ranked guy from being really young. He'd always been talked about for forever. I remember talking about him with my dad like 5 years ago. But me kind of like just coming into that, kind of like being ranked high and going D1, I would kind of like learn from him to just like be confident and know you're one of the best players on the floor and you should play like that. But also knowing at the same time that you have like kind of your stuff figured out. So if everybody's going to have bad games, so not getting super down on yourself when you do have a bad game, just knowing you're going to pick it back up the next one.
So when did it click for you? When did you start realizing that you are one of the top guys in your class, and especially one of the top guys in your state?
I think it really clicked for me when I first started getting like college interest. Like I was the first one to kind of reach out at the end of sophomore year. I was sending out emails and stuff, but I wasn't really like, I didn't know how serious it could be. But once I played on the AAU circuit and that first tournament playing guys that I had grown up watching on Ball is Life and stuff and playing against them and realizing like I can hold my own and having a really good season there. And then just when the college offers started coming in, I really realized like I have a future in basketball and I could go somewhere and play somewhere next year or in the next couple of years.
There's a story I want to talk about. I read in another article before that you and Matisse Thybulle, he was once shooting somewhere and you went up to talk to him and you guys kind of grew a little bit of a bond, met each other a few times. I'm going to take us through that relationship and how it started.
Yeah, so that started at Lake Chelan. So my grandma has a timeshare at Lake Chelan. So I go out there every year that summer. And she'd actually met him a couple summers before. So she was telling me when I don't even know how young I was, probably 10 or so, just that he played basketball. And I thought that was so cool because I played basketball. And then we just started shooting and we kind of hung out that whole weekend. And then probably every year that he played there, we went to at least one game and got pictures with him and just kind of built that relationship. And it was cool because I saw him growing up from Skyline or wherever he went to high school all the way through UW and now into the NBA. And I still keep in contact with him today, just talking about life and faith and what he's going through and what his journey was like.
And he's made it to the college level and dominated out there. He's made it to the NBA level now. It's carving out a really good career for him. What are some of the advice he's now giving you as you prepare for college and ultimately the goal of playing the NBA someday?
Yeah, so he's just kind of said, like, just don't take like any day for granted, really. Like every day is an opportunity for growth and to just stay focused on like the important things in your life other than basketball, which is like family and faith and school for me, and just kind of like trust the process of just going through it. Like him, a 4-year guy at UW, he wasn't a one and done or even like a 2 years and done player. He trusted the process at UW and got better each year, and then finally ended up being a top 20 pick in the NBA and is having a really good career there now. So just making sure working hard every day and stuff will work out because God has a plan.
Amen, man. And you haven't been able to have a typical summer for you. Typically, it's AAU. Would have been going on vids if you didn't commit already, and COVID wasn't a factor. But you did get to go to the Wooten Top 100 camp. What was that like?
That was super fun because that was the first kind of camp experience I'd had in a while with COVID and everything. And I kind of had forgotten what it was like to just get with new guys and just play camp games and play all day and have kind of competition like that against new guys. So that was a super fun experience for me. And I'd never been to Dallas. So it was a cool kind of hang out with my dad and go get food and just kind of learn the Dallas area a little better.
I mentioned the intro, and you're also wearing the shirt right now. You have been a part of Team USA now, 2 mini camps. What's
Yep.
it been like being a part of that and being in that elite environment?
That's been a super cool experience because I'd say that was almost bigger than when I first got like my first couple college offers was like Team USA because like I'd seen Team USA and you go to their like training camp and it's like where Olympic athletes have trained, like you're playing on the same floor as Kyrie Irving and LeBron James and
Mhm.
Kevin Durant, and just to be able to be labeled as one of the top 60 or so people in the nation, kind of regardless of class,
Mhm.
is a super awesome experience. And that's probably some of the best competition I've had is been at USA team camp, and some of the best coaching I've had because there's obviously they have super high level coaches from all around the country there. So that's just been a super fun experience.
Now we know it's not just about talent when you make that camp. It's about you obviously have to be elite. You're one of the top guys, but it also shows the character side. You have to be a high character guy, high academic guy. How have you been able to maintain all these different aspects of the game to be able to produce at really a Team USA kind of level?
Yeah, well, academics for me, we'll focus on that kind of first, has always been important because before I started getting, like I mentioned, I only kind of got recruited late my junior year into my senior year. So that was going to be the way I was getting to college was academics. So that was always kind of a big focus for me. So once I started getting offers for basketball, it never really dropped off. It was always still a focus for me. And then just kind of as far as like being humble and the other values they kind of teach at USA, I think that comes from faith and just the way I was raised. I was never the kid. Even kids talk about it now, how like it's cool that they can like see me as like a UW commit, but my friends are just like he's just another guy, you know. Like it's not like I act like too big or cooler than anybody there, and it's cool to see my friends talk about that because that's kind of how focus of mine has been for like my whole life, has been kind of staying humble and just being nice to everybody and just kind of being normal, you know, even though I'm like going D1 and stuff.
Would you say that's something that your parents have kind of influenced in you? Did you kind of self-teach yourself that? Who kind of instilled that in you?
I think that was mostly my parents and my coach. Coach Kylie's always been a big voice, a big proponent of being humble. His thing is always like, if you're nice people and you play well, you're gonna attract big crowds and have lots of friends. So that's kind of been him, and my parents have always raised me to just like be a nice person.
And I was like getting into these Team USA experiences because you're in there and you're going against in the very beginning processes these guys that are a year or two older. And when we're talking about the elite level, there typically are a big difference. 1 year separates the guys a lot. How are
Yeah.
you able to learn from guys that are a year or two older than you and kind of impact that? How they kind of impact your game?
Yeah, it was really cool. So actually the first like couple scrimmages I played in at USA, the first like 2 games we had the first time I went, I played terribly because just nerves and stuff, and seeing big time coaches there, like Coach K was there and Coach Williams from UNC, and I was just super nervous. But then the next day, kind of just like again, kind of like when I played my first circuit game, just kind of learning that like I can keep up with these guys and I can play with these guys and I deserve to be here as much as they do. I ended up playing a lot better and had a really strong camp, and that's probably what I think got me invited back to the next one. That and just kind of keeping up my level of play. So just learning that like no matter like age or level or anything, if you got invited to like USA, you're there for a reason. You can they obviously think you can play with these guys. So just having that kind of confidence again to just do what you do and play against anybody that's there in front of anybody, just knowing your game and your strengths and sticking to it and playing against just doing what you do.
COVID has shut down Team USA events and the camps and all that, but who knows if COVID can get shut down, we get the vaccine, it could potentially be the FIBA tournament this year, and maybe heading to the summer, we'll see how it all pans out. But is this something you would consider? Would you like to go back to that and try going out for the team?
Yeah, I would definitely love to do that. I mean, the FIBA opportunity seems amazing. That seems like that's kind of the ultimate goal of going to all those mini camps and everything, is to end up on the FIBA team and play all over the world. I could say pretty confidently that I've played basketball almost all over the country now, but to say you've played all over the world and to have that gold medal, like one of the best teams in the nation for 18U or whatever I end up playing, would be a super awesome experience, just like a last kickoff before college, to just have that medal and have that experience.
Absolutely, man. Well, a few more things before I let you go. One is discussing faith. You've talked about it before, and I think there's a lot of guys that are believers in the game of basketball, but not all are very vocal about it. And you have verses all over. You have different verses in each bio. You have First Peter 5:6. You have Proverbs 3:5-6. Also in your commitment. You also have Philippians 4:16. Just take us through these verses and why they all kind of stand out to you.
Yeah, so Philippians 4:13 has always been, I'd say that's kind of like my life verse. That's just the one that I've always grown up seeing and just played with that kind of in the back of my mind for my whole life. And then like First Peter 5:6 was kind of once I started like getting that recruiting and stuff, that verse just kind of keeps me humble. And then the Proverbs one has just always been like just like God has a plan and a purpose, and just that's finally coming into like his plan is coming into fruition by going to UW and everything. And it's super cool. That's always been a big part of my life is faith, and just being able to use my platform to be vocal about it has been super awesome.
I know growing up in a family that's a Christian believer, sometimes it's kind of brought into you, kind of raised into it.
Yeah.
When would you say you started really separating that and kind of formed your own relationship with God and really started building that own bond with Him?
Yeah, so I was obviously, like you said, raised in a Christian family, so it was always a part of me, like growing up. But I never really felt I had that relationship until I went to a Young Life camp.
Mhm.
That was my that was my sophomore summer, going to be a junior, and I kind of like I had Christ accepted, like I'd accepted Christ like a long time ago when I was like 5 at like Awana or something. But that
Mhm.
was when I really like wanted to focus my relationship and really felt God at that place. And I really felt like this is something I want to do for the rest of my life, not just something I was raised into, but something that really is a part of me.
And we see a lot of guys at the professional level. Some of the biggest ones are guys like Tim Tebow,
Yeah.
Jonathan Isaac's really got to that standpoint now, Jeremy Lin, those kind of guys. But there's just guys like you said, Matisse Thybulle, that just speaks out about faith, talks about it. How do
Mhm.
you look to be able to grow and spread his light throughout the next few levels when you play in college, when you play in pros? How do you feel to spread his light?
I hope to just be able to use kind of my platform that I'm going to hopefully get, whether that's social media or just TV interviews or interviews like this, to just kind of show how he's like blessed me in my life with everything I've done. Because obviously without him, I don't think I'd be where I am today. So just using that and using kind of like popularity, if it comes or whatever comes my way, to just kind of promote him in any way, anything that goes well in my life, just give all the credit to him. And that's what I do now. And that's what I'm going to continue to do.
That's awesome, man. Two things I like wrapping up with. One is discussing legacy. I think all guys want to build a legacy for themselves. So when you are done playing basketball someday, what do you ultimately want to be remembered for what you achieve both on and off the court?
Well, I obviously first of all we'll go with like kind of like a near goal first. So like I want to win a state championship. Whether it's I don't it's kind of looking like that's not going to happen this year, but that was always one of my goals in high school was to win a state championship, and then hopefully an NCAA championship at the next level. And if I make it to the NBA, then just like a NBA championship, and just kind of I want my legacy to just be like a winner. Just like whether I be remembered as like a good player or not, I just want to be remembered as teams that like I was always on teams that won. I did whatever it took to like bring the team up and win games, whether that was scoring a lot or rebounding. And then I also want to be remembered just as like a nice guy, like somebody that was kind to everybody and wasn't too big for anybody and always helped out any way they were needed, and just kind of so like a winner and just somebody that was always there for people.
Absolutely, man. My final thing for you, give Washington fans your three biggest goals you have set for your Washington career.
Yeah, so my three biggest goals I have set are making it to the next level. But before I do that, I want to take Washington to an NCAA championship. I don't think they've been to an NCAA tournament for a while, so I hope to take them there. And then I hope to set a couple records there. I haven't really focused on which ones yet, but I hope to set some records and leave my name in the history books at UW.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm excited to see what God's got next for you, man. And good luck this upcoming season and or whatever God's got in store for you this upcoming year. And keep doing your thing, man. Of
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
course, you're always welcome on, man. God bless.
All right, you too.